Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair watching the alien delegates argue among themselves. The big meeting hall on New Geneva Station was full of noise as 47 different species talked at once. Some clicked their mandibles, others roared through their vocal cords, and a few made sounds that no human ear could properly hear. Jake had been coming to these meetings for 20 years and still found the chaos amazing. Dr. Lisa Bennett sat next to him, her fingers moving across her tablet screen as she took notes. She was Earth's best expert on alien biology and had spent most of her life studying the creatures that surrounded them. Lisa knew more about alien anatomy than most aliens knew about themselves, though she kept that fact to herself. Ambassador Kethfer stood up from his seat, and the room slowly became quiet. The insect-like alien was tall and thin, with 4 arms that moved like water when he spoke. His compound eyes reflected the station's lights as he looked around the chamber. Kethvar had been speaking for the Zephyrian Collective for over a century, and his voice carried weight among the galactic community. Fellow delegates of the Galactic Council, Kethvar began, his translator box turning his clicking sounds into perfect English. We have gathered today to address a serious matter that threatens the peace we have maintained for 3,000 years. Jake kept his face neutral, but inside he felt a familiar tension building. He had been expecting this day for a long time. The reports had been coming in for months about human ships being spotted in areas where they supposedly had no business being. Someone had been careless, and now the price would have to be paid. War Prince Thorak rose from his massive chair on the other side of the chamber. The reptilian warrior was 8 feet tall and covered in green scales that shifted color based on his mood. Right now they were turning a deep red, which meant trouble for someone. His species had been the military, backbone of the Galactic Alliance for over 2 millennia, and they took their job seriously. The hegemony supports the collective's concerns, Thorak said, his voice like grinding stone. Human vessels have been detected in the forbidden sectors, harvesting materials that belong to all member species. This violation cannot be ignored. Lisa glanced at Jake, but he gave no sign of what he was thinking. She had learned over the years that her partner was much more than he appeared to be. Jake Morrison might look like a simple military officer turned diplomat, but Lisa suspected there were layers to him that even she had never seen. Other delegates began speaking up, each adding their voice to the growing chorus of complaints against humanity. The Carillion Syndicate reported unusual energy readings near their border worlds. The Nexus Federation claimed human research ships had been scanning their trade routes. Even the Peaceful Harmony Collective expressed concern about human activities. In neutral space, Jake finally stood up, and the chamber fell silent. There was something about the way he moved that made every alien in the room pay attention. He was not particularly tall or impressive by human standards, but when Jake Morrison spoke, people listened. "Distinguished delegates," Jake said calmly, "before we proceed with whatever action you are planning, I feel I should ask a simple question. Are you absolutely certain this is the path you want to take?" The reaction was immediate and loud. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the flood of angry words. How dare this human question their collective decision? Who did he think he was to challenge the wisdom of species that had been traveling the stars when his people were still living in caves? Kethfer raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "Captain Morrison, your species has been under our protection and guidance for 3,000 years. We have shared our technology, our knowledge, and our friendship with humanity. In return, we expected respect for the boundaries and agreements that keep peace in this galaxy. And we have always been grateful for your guidance," Jake replied, his hands clasped behind his back. "But I want to make sure you understand what you are about to do. Once you make this declaration, there is no taking it back." Thorak's scales shifted to a deeper red. Are you threatening this council, human? Jake smiled, and something about that smile made several delegates take a step backward. Not at all, War Prince. I am simply offering you one last chance to reconsider. The Carillion delegate, a being that looked like a walking crystal, spoke. Up, Captain Morrison, the evidence is clear. Human ships have violated 17 different treaty zones in the past 6 months. Your species has grown too bold, too curious for your own good. The time has come to remind humanity of its place in the galactic order. Very well, Jake said quietly. If that is your final decision. Kethfer began reading from a formal document. That had been prepared before the meeting. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, excluding the human delegate, we hereby declare that humanity has violated the Treaty of Worlds. Effective immediately, the 3,000-year protection agreement is terminated. Furthermore, we demand the immediate surrender of all human military assets and the cessation of all unauthorized activities in restricted space. The chamber erupted in what might have been applause if any of the species present had hands to clap with. Clicks, roars, and harmonized tones filled the air as the delegates celebrated their decision. Jake remained standing calmly in the middle of the chaos. He reached up to his collar and pressed a small communication device that most of the aliens probably thought was just a decoration. Pandora Protocol is now active, he said simply. The words were spoken quietly, but somehow they seemed to carry through the chamber. Several delegates stopped making noise and looked at Jake with confusion. Dr. Bennett had gone very still beside him, her tablet forgotten in her lap. What did you just say? Kethfer asked. I said Pandora Protocol is now active, Jake repeated. It is a reference to an old human story about a box that should never have been opened. You might want to look it up. War Prince Thorax stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the human. Explain yourself, Morrison. Jake's smile grew wider, but there was no warmth in it. For 3,000 years, you have seen humanity. As your students, your protected children, your junior partners in this galactic community. You have shared your technology and your knowledge with us, always careful to maintain your position as the teachers and guides. He began walking slowly around the chamber as he spoke, and every alien eye followed him. You have studied us like laboratory animals, cataloging our strengths and weaknesses, our psychology, and our biology. You know everything about human culture, human history, human capabilities. And what is wrong with that? The Carillion delegate asked. Nothing at all, Jake replied, except that while you were studying us, we were studying you right back. And unlike you, we were very careful not to let our subjects know what we were learning. The chamber had become completely quiet. Even the background hum of the station's life support systems seemed louder than usual. You are about to discover something that will change everything you think you know about humanity, Jake continued. You are about to learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, curiosity for ignorance, and gratitude for submission. He stopped walking and looked directly at Kethfer. You have just declared war on a species that has spent 3,000 years learning everything you had to teach us, and then improving on it. You have challenged beings who view every problem as a puzzle to be solved and every enemy as a teacher to be studied. Dr. Bennett finally spoke up, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. Gentlemen, you have made a serious mistake. You have assumed that because we asked questions, we were ignorant. Because we accepted your guidance, we were helpless. Because we seemed satisfied with our role, we were content. Jake activated his communicator again. All stations, this is Morrison. The masquerade is over. It is time to show our teachers what their students have learned. Throughout human space, on hidden bases and secret facilities, people who had been waiting for this moment for decades began moving. Ships that had never appeared on any alien scanner powered up their engines. Weapons that incorporated the best of 47 different technologies came online. Defense systems that had been disguised as research stations revealed their true purpose. The 3,000-year game of pretending to be the grateful students was finally over. Now the aliens would learn what humanity had really been doing with all that knowledge they had so generously shared. Jake Morrison looked around the chamber one last time, his expression now completely serious. You wanted to end the truce, distinguished delegates. Congratulations. You have succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching holographic displays that showed the movement of alien fleets across the galaxy. 24 hours had passed since the declaration of war, and the enemy was mobilizing. Faster than most of her staff had expected. 3,000 Zephyrian ships, 2,000 hegemony vessels, and hundreds more from smaller species were forming the largest military armada in recorded galactic history. Dr. Alex Chun approached the general with a tablet full of data. His face showed excitement rather than fear, which might have seemed strange to someone who did not know what humanity had been preparing for. Alex had spent the last 15 years working on projects that officially did not exist, using technology that the aliens thought they understood completely. Status report on the Ghost Fleet, Patricia said without taking her eyes off the main display. All 350 ships are operational and ready for deployment, Alex replied. The enemy has no idea what they are about to face. Every vessel incorporates technology reverse engineered from our alien friends and improved in ways they never imagined possible. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Davis appeared on the holographic communicator from his ship's bridge. The Nightfall was one of the newer vessels in the human fleet, built in hidden shipyards that had been operating in the outer solar system for over 2 centuries. Like all human ships, it looked nothing like the bulky, heavily armored vessels that other species favored. General, we have completed our reconnaissance of the enemy fleet, Ryan reported. They are maintaining standard formation protocols with no stealth screening or advanced defensive measures. They honestly believe they are hunting primitives with chemical rockets and nuclear warheads. Engineer Sophie Martinez activated the main display to show detailed schematics of human ship designs. The vessels were sleek and angular, built around principles that alien engineers had never mastered. Where other species focused on heavy armor and massive weapons, humans had chosen speed, stealth, and precision. The aliens made several critical errors in their assessment of our capabilities, Sophie explained to the assembled command staff. They saw our questions about their technology as signs of primitive curiosity rather than systematic intelligence gathering. They interpreted our gratitude for their guidance as evidence of dependence rather than strategic patience. Patricia turned to address her officers, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. For 3,000 years, we have played the role of eager students. We have accepted their technology, gifts, listened to their lectures about galactic civilization, and thanked them for their protection from dangers we supposedly could not handle alone. Dr. Chun pulled up historical data on the main screen. Every time they shared new technology with us, we did not just learn how to use it. We studied every component, every principle, every limitation. We found ways to improve efficiency, reduce power consumption, and eliminate weaknesses that the original designers never noticed. The gravitational drive systems they gave us were impressive, Sophie added, but they never realized that human engineers could modify them to achieve 30% greater efficiency while using 40% less energy. Their weapon designs were powerful, but we found ways to make them more accurate and faster to recharge. Ryan's voice came through the communicator again. The enemy fleet is using communication protocols that we helped them develop 20 years ago. They have no idea that we built backdoors into their own systems. We can monitor every order they give and predict their movements hours before they make them. Patricia activated the fleet-wide communication system, connecting to every human. Ships scattered throughout the solar system and beyond. All vessels, this is General Hayes. Operation Awakening is now in effect. It is time to show our teachers what their students have accomplished. The response was immediate and coordinated. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields, behind planetary rings, and in the cold depths of space began moving toward their assigned positions. Each vessel had been waiting for this moment, their crews trained for scenarios that the aliens had never imagined possible. Dr. Alex Chon reviewed the tactical analysis on his tablet. The enemy expects us to meet them with whatever crude warships we have managed to build using their cast-off technology. They anticipate a brief engagement, followed by our surrender and return to protected status under their guidance. Instead, Patricia said with a slight smile, they are about to encounter a fleet that incorporates the best features of every major military technology in the galaxy, combined with innovations that no single alien species ever developed on their own. Sophie brought up power consumption charts on her display. Human ships require 70% less energy to operate than equivalent alien vessels. Our stealth systems are based on Carillion phase technology, but we improve the power efficiency so much that we can maintain invisibility indefinitely, rather than just for short bursts. The main display showed the approaching alien armada in perfect formation. 10,000 ships moving in patterns that had been successful for millennia, using tactics that had never failed against any opponent they had faced before. Ryan provided updates from his reconnaissance position. Enemy fleet will reach the outer solar system in approximately 6 hours. They are broadcasting surrender demands on all human communication frequencies. War Prince Thorak is personally leading the assault force. Dr. Chun reviewed the psychological profiles that human intelligence had been compiling for decades. The aliens have never faced an opponent that understood their technology as well as they do. They have never fought an enemy that could predict their tactics or counter their strategies. Most importantly, they have never encountered a species that learned from them without revealing how much they had actually learned. Patricia walked over to the tactical display that showed human ship positions throughout the solar system. Each vessel was exactly where it needed to be, hidden from alien sensors, but ready to strike at a moment's notice. The aliens taught us everything they knew about warfare, technology, and strategy, she said to her command staff. They shared their history, their culture, their strengths and weaknesses. They did this because they believed we were too primitive to pose any threat to them. Sophie activated a display showing comparative technology levels. What they never realized is that humans have a unique approach to problem solving. Where other species see a finished design, we see a starting point for improvement. Where they see established limitations, we see challenges to overcome. The communication system crackled with reports from hidden observation posts throughout human space. Every alien movement was being tracked and analyzed in real time. Their formations were predictable, their communication patterns were known, and their tactical responses had been studied and cataloged for centuries. Dr. Chun looked up from his data analysis. General, the enemy fleet has just passed the point of no return. They are committed to this course of action and cannot retreat without losing face among their own species. Excellent, Patricia replied. Signal all ships to begin Phase 1 of Operation Awakening. It is time to remind our former teachers that sometimes students can surpass their instructors. Throughout human space, 350 ships began moving toward their targets. The vessels used stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors, speed capabilities that exceeded anything in the enemy fleet, and weapon systems that combined the best features of dozens of different alien designs. Ryan's voice came through the communicator with barely contained excitement. General, you should see the alien fleet right now. They are maintaining perfect formation, broadcasting victory messages to their homeworlds, and preparing for what they think will be the easiest conquest in galactic history. Patricia smiled as she watched the tactical display update with new information. They are about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology or our military capability. Our greatest strength has always been our ability to learn, adapt, and find ways to turn every lesson into an advantage. The alien armada continued its approach, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority and certain of their technological advantages. In a few hours, they would learn that the species they had considered primitive students had become masters of warfare beyond their comprehension. The 3,000-year masquerade was about to end, and the aliens would discover what humanity had really been doing with all the knowledge they had so generously shared. Admiral Frank Parker stood on the bridge of his flagship Retribution, watching 10,000 alien ships approach in perfect formation. The enemy armada filled his tactical displays with red markers, each one representing enough firepower to destroy a small moon. War Prince Thorak's massive dreadnought Devastator led the formation, its hull bristling with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds over the centuries. Dr. Katie Williams stood beside the Admiral's command chair, her eyes focused on the psychological assessment data streaming across her tablet. She had spent 15 years studying alien military doctrine by observing their training exercises and analyzing their historical battle records. Every species in that approaching fleet followed predictable patterns that had worked for them for millennia. Your assessment, Doctor, Parker said calmly. They are following pattern Alpha 7 exactly as we predicted, Katie replied. Standard overwhelming force deployment with the expectation that we will meet them head-on, take massive casualties within the first hour, and surrender before they have to destroy Earth's orbital infrastructure. Major Steve Johnson's voice crackled through the communication system from his assault ship Falcon. Admiral, boarding teams are standing by. We have studied their ship layouts for decades through the technical manuals they shared with us. We know their vessels better than most of their own crew members do. Parker nodded as he reviewed the final positions of the Ghost Fleet. 350 human ships were spread throughout the solar system, each one invisible to alien sensors, and positioned exactly where the tactical computers had determined they would do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. Technical Sergeant Linda Brown reported from her stealth reconnaissance vessel monitor. Sir, alien communications are exactly what we expected. They are discussing how quickly they can disable our primitive defenses and begin the occupation of Earth. War Prince Thorak is telling his fleet commanders that this will be over before their lunch break. The alien fleet opened fire without warning, unleashing enough destructive energy to sterilize a dozen worlds. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains, particle beams that could punch through planetary shields, and gravitational weapons that could tear apart asteroids filled the space where human ships should have been with deadly light. Instead, they found empty vacuum. Enemy weapons are firing at ghost images generated by our holographic projection systems, Linda reported with obvious satisfaction. Their targeting computers are registering direct hits, but their sensors show no debris. No energy signatures, no evidence that they actually destroyed anything. Parker smiled grimly as he watched the alien fleet's confusion grow. Human ships had never been where the enemy computers said they were. The vessels existed in a state of dimensional phase that made them visible to their own sensors, but completely undetectable to alien technology. Dr. Williams monitored the alien communication channels as panic began to spread through their ranks. Admiral, they are requesting confirmation from their sensor operators. The weapons officers are reporting successful strikes, but the science teams cannot find any evidence of destroyed human vessels. The counterattack began without any warning that alien sensors could detect. Human ships materialized inside the enemy formation like ghosts becoming solid, their weapons targeting specific systems with surgical precision that no alien military doctrine had ever encountered. Instead of trying to destroy the alien vessels outright, human ships disabled engines, weapons arrays, communication systems, and navigation computers. Within minutes, the organized armada became a collection of drifting, helpless ships floating in space like broken toys. War Prince Thorak roared his frustration as his flagship systems failed one by one. The massive dreadnought that had never been defeated in combat was suddenly blind, deaf, and unable to move. His weapons officer reported that their targeting computers could not establish locks on the human vessels. His communications officer informed him that their jamming signals were being turned back against them. Somehow, Major Johnson's boarding teams began their assault on key alien vessels. Human Marines wearing powered armor that incorporated the best features from a dozen different alien technologies moved through enemy ships like deadly shadows. They knew every corridor, every security checkpoint, every defensive system because they had helped design the improvements that many of these ships used. Boarding Team Alpha has secured the Zephyrian command ship, Johnson reported. The crew is offering no resistance. They seem to be in shock that we were able to penetrate their defensive screens without triggering any alarms. Technical Sergeant Brown continued monitoring alien communications from her invisible position. Admiral, the enemy fleet is trying to regroup, but their formation is completely broken. Ship captains are requesting orders from commanders, whose vessels are no longer responding. Some of the smaller ships are attempting to retreat. Parker activated the fleet communication system. All units implement containment protocol. No alien vessel leaves this system until we have completed our objectives. Use minimum necessary force, but make it clear that surrender is their only option. Dr. Williams observed the psychological breakdown occurring throughout the alien fleet. Admiral, this is exactly what our models predicted. These species have never faced an opponent that could match their technology, predict their tactics, and counter their strategies. They are experiencing what humans would call shock and disbelief. Human ships moved through the alien formation with precision that seemed impossible to the enemy commanders. The vessels appeared and disappeared at will, striking targets with weapons that seemed to ignore traditional defensive measures, then vanishing before return fire could be directed at them. War Prince Thorak's navigation officer finally managed to restore partial communications and delivered the news that would change everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Sir, our quantum analysis indicates that the human ships are using dimensional phase technology based on Corellian research, but improved beyond anything we have ever seen. Impossible, Thorak growled. The Corellians never achieved stable phase, shifting for vessels larger than scout ships. The humans did, sir, the officer replied quietly. They took our technology and made it better. Major Johnson's boarding teams had secured 7 major vessels without firing a single shot. The alien crews, trained for conventional warfare, had no idea how to respond to enemies who could walk through their defensive barriers and disable their weapons before they could react. Admiral, we have control of the Zephyrian flagship and 3 hegemony dreadnoughts, Johnson reported. The enemy crews are requesting permission to surrender. They want to know how we learned to use their own technology against them. Parker looked at the tactical display, showing the complete dissolution of what had been the most powerful military force in galactic history. Disabled ships drifted throughout the solar system, while human vessels moved among them like shepherds managing. A flock. Technical Sergeant Brown provided the final assessment that confirmed what everyone already knew. Sir, enemy resistance has completely collapsed. Approximately 60% of their fleet is disabled and requesting surrender. 30% are attempting to retreat, but cannot achieve escape velocity due to engine damage. The remaining 10% are dead in space. Dr. Williams reviewed the psychological profiles one last time. Admiral, The alien commanders are experiencing what their own military manuals describe as total tactical failure. They had no contingency plans for facing an opponent who understood their capabilities better than they did. Parker opened communication channels to the entire alien fleet. "This is Admiral Parker of the Human Defense Force. You came here expecting to fight primitive humans with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Instead, you found a species that spent 3,000 years learning everything you had to teach. U.S. then improving on it." The response from War Prince Thoric came through speakers that crackled with static from damaged systems. "How is this possible? You were students, not teachers. You were the protected, not the protectors." "You are correct," Parker replied. "We were students. Very good students who learned every lesson you taught us and then asked ourselves how we could do it better. You shared your technology with us because you believed we were too primitive to pose any threat. You were wrong. In less than 6 hours, the largest military armada in galactic history had been defeated without the loss of a single human life. The aliens were forced to confront a reality they had never imagined possible. The species they had considered primitive students had become masters of warfare that exceeded their own capabilities. The 3,000-year age of human subservience was over, and the galaxy would never be the same again. President Helen Carter stepped aboard the diplomatic vessel Endeavour, escorted by a small flotilla of human ships that flickered in and out of existence like mirages. The Galactic Council had requested an emergency session aboard New Geneva Station. But the atmosphere was completely different from their last meeting. Where alien representatives had once spoken with casual authority about human affairs, now they whispered among themselves and cast nervous glances toward the human delegation. Captain Jake Morrison, no longer bothering to hide his true rank and position within human intelligence operations, walked beside the president as they made their way to the council chambers. His uniform now displayed insignia that the aliens had never seen before, representing branches of human government that they never knew existed. Ambassador Kethver waited in the council chamber, his 4 arms trembling with an emotion that his species rarely displayed: fear. The insect-like alien who had confidently declared war just days earlier now seemed smaller and much less certain of himself. Around him, delegates from 46 other species sat in uncomfortable silence. "How?" Kethver asked simply as the human delegation took their seats. "How did your species advance so far beyond our knowledge without our detection?" Admiral Tony Mitchell, wearing the uniform of Human Intelligence Operations, activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The presentation showed the true scope of human activities throughout the galaxy: hidden bases near every major alien world, stealth monitoring stations in supposedly empty space, infiltration networks that had been operating for centuries. "The answer is quite simple, Ambassador," Jake replied calmly. "You taught us everything we needed to know, and we spent 3,000 years learning from the best teachers in the galaxy. Every time you shared technology with us, we did not just learn how to use it, we learned how to improve it." War Prince Thoric, his scales now a sickly yellow color that indicated submission among his people, struggled to understand what he was seeing. "Every time we demonstrated our military capabilities during joint exercises, you were studying our weaknesses, rather than admiring our strength." Dr. Carol Davis, representing the Human Economic Analysis Division, presented data that made several alien delegates sink deeper into their chairs. "For 3,000 years, you believed you were carefully controlling our access to advanced technologies and galactic markets. In reality, humans have been the primary source of innovation in this galaxy for the past millennium." The holographic display showed trade routes, technology transfers, and economic relationships that painted a picture none of the aliens had suspected. That improved gravitational drive system the hegemony adopted 500 years ago was actually designed by human engineers. The enhanced communication networks the Zephyrians have been using were developed in human research facilities. We have been selling you our own technology through intermediary species, letting you believe you were. The inventors. President Carter stood and addressed the assembly with calm authority. We allowed you to maintain the illusion that you were guiding our development because it served our purposes, while you thought you were protecting us from the dangers of awe. Advanced technology, we were learning everything we could about galactic civilization. The Corellian delegate, its crystal body flickering with agitated light patterns, asked the question that had been troubling every species present. Why did you maintain this deception for so long? If you possessed such advanced capabilities, why did you not reveal them sooner? Captain Bill Thompson, representing the Human Diplomatic Corps, stepped forward to answer. Because we learned something about galactic politics that you never taught us directly. We discovered that every species in this council achieved their position through conquest, intimidation, or inherited advantage. None of you knew how to work with true equals. Admiral Mitchell continued the explanation while the display showed historical data about galactic conflicts. We studied every war, every treaty, every diplomatic negotiation in recorded galactic history. We learned that stronger species dominate weaker ones. That technological advantage creates political control, and that equality between different species had never been successfully achieved. So we decided to try a different approach, President. Carter added, instead of demanding equality through force, we would earn it by proving that cooperation produces better results than domination. Dr. Davis presented economic analysis that demonstrated the truth of this claim. Galactic economic growth has increased by 400% since humans began secretly contributing to technological development. Scientific advancement has accelerated beyond anything achieved in the previous 10 millennia. Even cultural exchange between species has improved dramatically. War Prince Thorak struggled to process this information. You are claiming that our entire understanding of galactic civilization has been wrong. Not wrong, Jake corrected. Incomplete. You built a stable system based on hierarchy and control, which worked well for maintaining peace. But you never discovered what could be achieved through genuine partnership between equals. Ambassador Kethfor's compound eyes reflected the holographic displays as he tried to understand the implications. What do you want from us now? You have demonstrated that you can defeat our combined military forces. You could demand our surrender and establish human dominance over the galaxy. President Carter smiled, and her expression carried warmth rather than triumph. We want exactly what we have always wanted: peace, trade, mutual cooperation, and exploration of the galaxy. The only difference is that now we are proposing to do it as equals instead of as your protected children. Captain Thompson presented the terms of a new treaty that would replace the ancient accords. The Treaty of Worlds will be completely renegotiated, with human representatives having equal voice in all galactic affairs. The forbidden sectors will be open to exploration by all species working together. Most importantly, there will be no more secrets between our civilizations. You are asking us to trust you, the Corellian delegate observed. We are asking you to trust the same principles that made this galaxy more prosperous and peaceful during the past 3,000 years, Admiral Mitchell replied. The difference is that now those principles will be applied openly rather than secretly. Dr. Davis presented projections showing potential benefits of true cooperation. Economic models indicate that open partnership between all species could increase prosperity by another 300% within a century. Scientific advancement could accelerate even further. Cultural development could reach levels that none of our species has achieved alone. War Prince Thorak's scales slowly shifted from yellow to a deep blue that indicated thoughtful consideration. You are proposing something that has never been attempted in galactic history. partnership between species of vastly different capabilities and cultures. We are proposing something that has already been working for 3,000 years, President Carter corrected. The only change is that now it will be official rather than hidden. Ambassador Kethfer looked around the chamber at representatives from 46 species, all of whom were struggling to adjust to a new reality. If we agree to these terms, what guarantee do we have that humanity will not eventually seek dominance as every powerful species has done throughout history? Jake. Morrison smiled the same way he had during their last meeting, but this time the expression carried no threat. You have the same guarantee you always had, Ambassador. You know us better than we know ourselves, because you have been studying us for 3,000 years. You know that humans are curious, adaptable, and persistent, but we are also incapable of being satisfied with simple dominance. Humans become bored with easy victories, Dr. Davis added. We need challenges, puzzles to solve, new frontiers to explore. Ruling over a static galactic empire would be a form of torture for our species. President Carter delivered the final argument that would determine the future of galactic civilization. You can choose to accept us as equal partners and help build something greater than any of our species could achieve alone. Or you can choose to resist and discover that the species you thought you understood completely is still full of surprises. The alien delegates looked at each other, communicating through gestures and expressions that humans had learned to read long ago. The choice they made in the next few minutes would determine whether the galaxy entered a new age of cooperation or descended into a conflict that none of them could win. The 3,000-year age of human subservience was definitely over, but what would replace it remained to be decided. Fleet Admiral Chris Taylor watched the launch of the first joint exploration mission to the galactic core from the observation deck of Unity Station, a space facility constructed cooperatively by human and alien engineers. 6 months had passed since the failed invasion, and the galaxy had settled into a new reality that surprised everyone with how well it actually worked. The expedition fleet included ships from 12 different species, but the mission parameters had been designed using human strategic doctrine. The vessels were arranged in adaptive formations that could respond to unexpected situations rather than rigid patterns that had been used for millennia. Each ship crew included members from multiple species working together in ways that had never been attempted before. Dr. Martha Wilson, head of the Interspecies Cooperation Program, stood beside the Admiral reviewing the mission reports on her tablet. Her program had become the most successful diplomatic initiative in galactic history, achieving better cooperation between alien races in 6 months than had existed in the previous 3,000 years. The Carillion delegates are particularly excited about the deep space mineral surveys, Martha reported. Their crystal-based technology could be revolutionary if we can find the right materials in the galactic core region. Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez, representing humanity in the Reformed Galactic Council, approached them with news from the latest council session. The vote was unanimous, she announced with satisfaction. All 47 species have approved the establishment of joint research colonies in the frontier regions. The proposal had been unthinkable under the old system. Each colony would be administered by a different species, but populated by volunteers from all member races. The goal was not just exploration and resource gathering, but the development of truly integrated galactic civilization. Commander, Sam Anderson's voice came through the communication system from the first joint research station located in orbit, around a neutron star that provided unique opportunities for studying exotic physics. Admiral, the breakthrough in faster-than-light communication just came from combining human, intuitive problem-solving with Zephyrian computational precision and hegemony engineering expertise. No single species could have achieved this advancement. Working alone, War Prince Thoric, who now held the title of Peace Prince following major reforms in hegemony culture, had become one of the strongest supporters of the new cooperative system. His warriors had discovered that exploration of the unknown provided challenges worthy of their skills, without the destruction that traditional warfare required. The hegemony exploration teams have identified 17 potentially habitable worlds. In the frontier regions, Peace Prince Thorak reported during the weekly council briefing, "Our warriors are eager to test themselves against the dangers of uncharted space, rather than against each other in pointless conflicts." Captain Jake Morrison, now Director of Human Intelligence Operations, reviewed the transformed political landscape from his office on New Geneva Station. The building had been completely redesigned to accommodate representatives from all species equally, rather than maintaining the hierarchical arrangements that had existed for millennia. Species that had been locked in cold wars for centuries were now cooperating on joint projects. Trade routes that had been restricted by ancient territorial agreements were open to all member races. Scientific advancement had accelerated beyond anything that the most optimistic projections had predicted. Dr. Carol Davis presented the 6-month economic analysis to the Reformed Council. Galactic prosperity has increased by 60% since the implementation of the new cooperative agreements. This rate of improvement exceeds our most optimistic projections by a significant margin. The success was not limited to economics and technology. Cultural exchange between species had flourished in ways that surprised even the human social scientists who had designed the new programs. Art, music, literature, and philosophy were being shared freely for the first time in galactic history. Kethvar, speaking for the Zephyrian Collective, addressed the council with what might have been wonder in his translated voice. "Our scientists report that collaborative research with human and hegemony teams has produced more significant discoveries in 6 months than our species achieved independently in the previous century." Commander Anderson provided regular updates from the joint research stations that were being established throughout the galaxy. The diversity of approaches to problem solving has created breakthrough solutions that none of our species would have developed working alone. Human creativity, Zephyrian logic, hegemony engineering, and Corellian precision complement each other in ways we never anticipated. President Helen Carter delivered the keynote address at the inaugural session of the Reformed Galactic Council, speaking to representatives from 47 species who now met as genuine equals, rather than in the hierarchical structure that had dominated galactic politics for millennia. 3,000 years ago, our species met for the first time, she began, looking around the chamber at beings who had once considered humanity their primitive students. "You discovered humans struggling with basic technology, fighting among ourselves, barely capable of reaching our own moon. You chose to guide us rather than conquer us, and that choice created something that none of our species expected." She paused to let her words register with the diverse audience. "You intended to create a stable junior partner that would contribute to galactic civilization without challenging the established order. Instead, you created something far more valuable, a true partnership that has made all of our species stronger than any of us could have been alone." Fleet Admiral Taylor watched the launch of the second wave of exploration vessels, these ones bound for distant galaxies that had never been visited by any known species. The ships carried crews from every member race and equipment that represented the combined technological achievements of 47 different civilizations. Dr. Wilson's interspecies cooperation program had expanded beyond her wildest dreams. "We now have over 300 joint research projects active throughout the galaxy," she reported to the council. "Each project includes members from at least 4 different species, and the results are consistently exceeding expectations." The transformation extended far beyond official government programs. Private trade between species had exploded as artificial barriers were removed. Cultural festivals celebrating the diversity of galactic civilization were being held on dozens of worlds. Educational exchange programs allowed young beings from different species to learn directly from each other. Peace Prince Thorok reflected on the changes within his own culture during a private conversation with Jake Morrison. My people spent millennia believing that strength came from dominance over others. We have learned that true strength comes from working with others to achieve goals that none of us could reach alone. Jake nodded as he reviewed intelligence. Reports that showed the complete transformation of galactic politics. Humanity learned the same lesson, but we learned it by studying you rather than by conquering you. We discovered that the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from turning them into allies. The crowning achievement of the new cooperative era was the launch of the first intergalactic exploration mission, the massive vessel. Harmony carried a crew of 500 volunteers from 30 different species and incorporated the finest technological achievements from throughout the galaxy. As the ship disappeared into the space between galaxies, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of dozens of species working together toward common goals. The 3,000-year truce had not ended with war and conquest, but with the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. True civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Taylor stood on the observation deck watching the stars, knowing that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had not conquered the galaxy through superior weapons or overwhelming force. Instead, they had transformed it through patience, intelligence, and the revolutionary idea that different species could work together as equals. The age of human subservience was over, but more importantly, the age of any species ruling over others had ended as well. In its place had emerged something better, a galactic community where strength came from diversity, advancement came from cooperation, and the greatest adventures lay not in conquering others, but in exploring the unknown together. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in recorded history, that change represented hope rather than fear for every species that called the stars their home.